Ay, perfecto. ¿Me escuchas? No, ahora no te escucho.
Ya mejor, es que estos Bluetooth, ok.
Ahora
¿Me
sí,
escuchas
pero
ahora?
sí, ok. Ya estamos en vivo. Wait, I'm in English. We are live. Thank you so much for being here today, Vanessa. For everyone out there, my name is Kevin Hunting. This is Stepping Out with Vanessa Calva. And just a little bit of background. Basically, Vanessa right now is the special assistant to the Deputy Foreign Secretary of Mexico. And she is a career diplomat. So I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy you could share your time with us. And so just to start off, one of the things that we always start off with is maybe sharing a bit about just your overall background and experience within the Foreign Service and kind of your different posts, just in general, nothing in detail, but sort of where you've been over the past, I don't know, how many years now have you been in the Foreign Service?
It's been over 20 years now, so I am not exactly a young maiden, but yes, I actually being in the Foreign Service has been pretty much the only thing I've done career-wise. I was able to join almost right after college. 6 months afterwards, as you know, there is a public exam which we take that has different types of stages in order for us to join, and it was fascinating because it was sort of by accident that I joined the Foreign Service. I've always been very passionate about international relations and international affairs, and once upon a time, my idea was that I was eventually going to work at the UN and contribute in bringing world peace. But one of my professors suggested for me to take the exam for the Foreign Service just to see if it was something that eventually I would be interested in. And extremely lucky for me, I was able to actually join on my first attempt. And so pretty much that changed everything. And I was able to be at the ministry. At that time, we used to have a master's program as a part of the as part of our diplomatic academy, which was great because it allowed me to get to know more my generation colleagues, so to speak. And eventually I was able to be posted abroad, which was something that I was really itching for. And my first post was in Denver. In the United States, we have 50 consular representations. The one in Denver covers the whole state of Colorado, and at that time, we were also supervised a couple of counties on Wyoming. So that was pretty big. It was fascinating because it was also the first time that I was going to be living outside my house, and it brought obviously a lot of very exciting, a lot of challenges, and a lot of soul searching aspects as well. But I loved it. What I was responsible for in Denver was I was the head of the Consular Protection Department. So it means that we basically help any type of we assist Mexican nationals that have any type of situation with authorities or while they're abroad, and that really made it click for me. Being able to be in touch with people and just being able to help them. It really sounds a little. It might sound a little cheesy, but it did really awaken something that I had no idea I wanted to do in my life. And I think that absolutely molded everything that I've done ever since, or the intent with what I do things.
Absolutely.
And it was great. After Denver, I was able to be posted in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is our biggest consulate, our biggest representation, I would say, within the whole diplomatic Mexican network. We cover we cover the county of LA, and that's over 3.5 million Mexicans. So
Wow.
again, the dynamic allows you to identify a lot of opportunities to connect, to understand, to reach out. And that's actually what I was in charge of. I was in charge of community affairs. So there's a lot of interesting experiences and little anecdotes that I have. LA became my home for 5 years. And it was really, it was challenging. You know, that was the first time also that within my career, I experienced what it meant to open up your life and then go to another place and start again. And after Los Angeles, I did it again. And when I was sent to Washington, D.C. to work at our embassy then, and in Washington, my experience again was fascinating. You know, you go from the West Coast to the East Coast, and to all of
different dynamics in terms of how people operate and even kind of view the world to a certain extent, you know?
Absolutely. But I think that that's why I've been so privileged, because I was, you know, I've only been posted in one country, but in Denver and then in Los Angeles and then in DC, allow me to just, you know, experience very different aspects of the US. I mean, you know, certainly there is the same backbone behind it, which is something that I also enjoyed a lot because I studied in a bilingual school when I was in Mexico City. But yeah, just it allows you to appreciate a lot of what you see and how you experience it. And after DC, now I'm back in Mexico City as part of what we are in our diplomatic tour. We are meant to, after a couple of years. In my case, it extended over to 13 years that I lived outside my small hometown of Mexico City, and now I'm back here.
In which I love how you kind of brought up the idea that, right, each city and kind of each geographic area that you moved to when you were in the United States certainly has different flavors and kind of a different rhythm and sometimes even I think different views on you know, time and everything like that, because of, like, I think really it has a lot to do with just how much different cultures are living like in one city, and that influence, the confluence of all of those things coming together. But when you think about your experience, which city would you say did you really, for you personally, did you enjoy the most, or that the city itself and the energy of the city and everything, which one really stuck with you once you returned back to Mexico?
Well, I think that the last sitting which I was in, which was Washington, had all of them certainly had a very profound personal and professional impact. But I would say that the one in DC allowed me to get more of a balance in terms of my private life and work. Los Angeles, a city that was fascinating, but the work that I used to do there was extremely demanding, and I would work, you know, from Monday to Sunday, after hours, because of the community engagement that we would do, and because the number of organizations that want to work with you is so large, which is fascinating. You know, in Denver, when I used to live there, the state was very different. It had a much more anti-immigrant profile than what we see now. You know, certainly it's been fascinating for me to see how Colorado and Denver has kind of gone through the spectrum. But I think that in Washington, I was able to appreciate precisely what Denver and LA had taught me. You know, your personal life is important. Enjoying your work certainly is very important. And you don't have to necessarily give one to enjoy the other. And I think that because of the dynamic that I used to do in that city, I was able to achieve it a little better. So I enjoyed it a lot. And I think that the people that I met in that city that are still in my life, you know, really, it's been very, very special. It's been very, very
Oh, wow.
special.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what now moving on kind of throughout your career, right? We all encounter obstacles in our careers. And it can be professional obstacles, and sometimes they can be both professional and personal. But what would you say was like one big obstacle that you faced professionally as you kind of were moving into these like different roles? It could be, you know, anyone, but that you recall that kind of stuck out to you, and how did you kind of manage and overcome the obstacle that you faced?
Well, I think that I was extremely lucky that I do have to say that every move is not only, you know, putting certain things in boxes and going into another city and just, you know, getting to know, you know, being the new kid at school and that kind of thing, because it really does come with a cost sometimes in terms of personal aspects. I think in my particular experience, you know, when I arrived to Denver, I was still struggling in coming out. So for me, the move had been very liberating because I felt that I could be a little bit more open, but I was really not. And I felt that I carried that with me a little bit longer. And I feel that that's why the work that I was doing became so important to me, because it became sort of like a very positive outlet to just, you know, see, you know, you're in a position of helping someone and providing assurance in situations that sometimes can be very complicated, which I think was exactly what I was looking for. So I think that was the first challenge, in just figuring out really who I was, because until that point, you know, I had just been in school, you know, I had been in school, I had been, you know, but the reality of now being in another country, you know, which for me was a second home, so to speak, in the US, because you know, the culture, the language for me was already something that I knew. Not like other colleagues that are sent to other parts of the world in which they, you know, have to really go through other loops through that. And I was extremely lucky because I met, you know, my best friend in Denver, and she was just, you know, amazing, because she gave me that amazing solidarity that women can have. She took me under her wing. She showed me, you know, this is how things work at the office. She would take me out of town so that, you know, I wouldn't be in my home, in my house all the time. And when the moment came for me to talk to her about my private life, she was extremely supportive and loving. And I think that absolutely just, you know, saved me. And so by the time that I was ready for my first move, the challenge, you know, I was able to have this amazing person in my life that I could talk to. You know, certainly also having my sister with me through this was very special, but this was also the first time that I was not with my sister. And it was tough. I think that was also one of the toughest things that I had to go through, not being with my sister, which was great because for other circumstances in life, she ended up moving in LA, and we, you know, kind of reunited. But that challenge was very complicated. You know, when do I decide to tell people that I'm gay? And when I arrived in LA, I felt that because I was, you know, living with someone, I needed to then just, you know, be more true to that part of my life, and slowly, you know, that part of us, you know, bringing your personal life into your professional life, you know, became sort of like the opportunity to start also lifting a couple of the weight that I felt on me. But again, I think it just went back to having, you know, great people in my life that I was able to, you know, talk to when things got really, really tough.
And when I love how, like, thank you for sharing that. And I love how you were, like you said, making this connection and this idea that, you know, having a support or someone who, like you said, you can really have a deep connection to, that creates a safe space, if you will, for you to be who you are, and to not even, and in this moment, like you said, in Denver, maybe it was more about you getting to know yourself, which was in itself a whole process, right? It's a process to really understand who we are, and certainly who we are when you relate it back to like sexuality and like gender identity, etc. So for me, that's really powerful what you just said. And part of me also then wants to know, because it just fuels my, what is it like in getting to know yourself, like you said, and getting to get clear about who you were as a woman and as a lesbian woman. What did that bring into your life? Just like you said, the self-awareness that you were going through and sort of this exploration with who am I, who am I as Vanessa Calva? How do you think that actually, how did that like relate back to like the life that you were living, and just even like how you were feeling and even expressing who you were, both professionally and personally?
I think that that's also one of the reasons why I feel, and I was sharing before, that DC had, has a very unique place for me, because when I arrived to DC, the first time that I was fully out, I kid you not, I think that, I'm pretty sure even the president knew that I was gay at that point. I was trying to tell and share as much as I could, because it became so important to me, because I feel that for many, many years, I had to be so careful in how I said certain things and how I phrased certain things. If I was, with my partner and that kind of, and those sort of aspects. And it was very nice that, in a way that it's very hard to explain unless, you have, you've been through something similar, how refreshing it is just to say, yeah, this is me. And no one, obviously, I was lucky because no one said anything. I think many people, turned around and they were like, I think we knew, or something like that, but it wasn't a big deal at all.
Right.
And I think that the difficulty that sometimes we face when we are, going through the thinking of, when is it the adequate moment for me to share this at work is, if people are going to see you differently, not necessarily that they're going to call you names or anything, but
right.
that the dynamic that you have changes. And I think that the type of work that I do involves, a big part of my life to be part of work, because I'm literally moving my life where I'm sent from work. And the people that you work with become some sort of extended family, whether you want it or not, because you are spending with them a tremendous amount of time. And I think especially in US consulates, when we go through, distinctive dynamics through weekend activities and things like that, it becomes hard. So I think that, it was always something that was on my mind. And I feel that even though I was putting all of my energy at the work that I was really enjoying and everything that I was doing, in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, I wish, that I could just not necessarily have this sensation of, needing to explain myself, because I feel that that's also, perhaps that was something sort of like internal that I felt that I needed to do, that I needed to explain who I was. This is me. That there had to be some type of explanation behind it.
I think that's a really great point you're making there, in that I know exactly what you're saying, and that it's it's not like you're defending yourself, but in the end, you're right, that if you get to a certain point, you can kind of catch yourself and say, to yourself, why is it that I don't need to explain myself. Like, I can explain myself if I choose to, but to your point, I don't have to, and there's really no need to. But I understand what you're saying, because that happened. I mean, very similar path. Like when I was first just, finding out who I was, and that obviously, like, I was gay. It was something very similar. And I think another phenomenon that I've spent time talking about through the Proud Diplomat is this idea that, especially in the diplomatic world, sometimes you're constantly having to like come out, and it's it takes a lot of energy, and it can take as much energy, I think, as you want to give it, because you do get, I think it's almost like you have to get to a point where you're like, I'm not responsible for how you are going to interpret me sharing that I spend my life with this, with this individual. But it's always there, and it always creates, like you said, if someone asks, I'm always going to be honest about who I am. But at the same time, you have no idea how they're really, how are they going to react? Is it going to create some kind of discomfort or uncomfortableness? Or is it someone, it leads into this amazing, dynamic, beautiful conversation and this new connection that you're making, right? When you're out, because I mean, obviously, being a diplomat, you're going to events, you're obviously representing Mexico. And so for you, I'm sure that's happened, and that happened, sometimes, not all the time, but certainly the idea of having to come out and continue to do that is just, it can be taxing. It can be taxing at times.
It is. I think that the funny thing, or the thing that I appreciate now, that I'm older, is that those are the things that used to kind of keep me up at night before. Now it's actually something that I, profoundly enjoy. If someone asks me, or somehow that question or that issue comes about, like, are you married, or have things like that, and then I cannot go into a whole rant of that. So I want to say that things sometimes take longer than we would like to. And it's always obviously easier to look back on certain things that during that time were, that were painful, or they were, causing you nerves or anxiety. But I think that the part that has been also so, that I've appreciated so much more of coming back to Mexico City precisely at this moment in my life, was that I had sort of like shed those, those layers of things that had weighed me down when I left, many years ago. So the feeling of coming back, had an emotional toll, but at the same time, it was great to say, I'm thankful that I'm able to come back, and now I'm in a very different, point in my life and place in my life, of things that used to hurt me now, allow me to just, be more appreciative of my journey, I guess.
Amazing. And so actually, I'm just going to continue this topic a little bit because it ties so nicely into it. I think it's known by so many that you really have been such an avid supporter, a voice, a strong voice within the overall ministry around, topics related to the LGBTQ plus community, and also within, like, meaning within the Foreign Service, but also a lot of the programs and stuff that I know consulates offer around this particular area, and this, that affect this community. And so I commend you for that, because really you have put, I think, your heart and soul into so much of that work. And it's amazing that you've been able to do that. And why is that piece of it so important to you? Like, why has it been so important to you to, kind of be this huge champion?
Well, I appreciate, and obviously, your support in all of these years has also been extremely important, because sometimes you feel that you might be the only one that is seeing certain things, and the opportunity to talk about it also with, with friends, and to just realize that yeah, there are things that have changed, things that can continue to be changed, is also very, very important. And and I was thinking about this for a while yesterday, and I guess I don't have any other different way of sugarcoating it, but I think that it comes back sort of to the fact that, my coming out process was for me, it was very difficult, and it was, as I guess for many of us, it was very, very painful. And sometimes, I think how my life could have been different if period, when I really realized that I like girls, I was supposed to like boys, if someone had just been like, okay, well, there's not a big deal, as long as you're are respectful and caring for the other person, you can date whoever you want. But instead, I received other type of responses to that. So in the work that I was doing in Los Angeles, I was able to have a lot of I started to have more interaction with the LGBTQ community, and especially with trans women who were coming to the consulate to request a Mexican passport, with their new with their gender identity, and we were not able to provide them with one because their legal documents were still not reflecting who they were.
Gotcha.
But the problem was that the conversation and the interaction that we were having as a government office with these women was extremely insensitive. And there was a point in which one of them, made a complaint, and it went to a small news organization called Univision. And, it put us on the spotlight. And at that point, I thought, well, this is it. We need to do something. And the conversations that I had with those women afterwards really they opened my eyes in a way that I didn't know it was possible. I thought, well, I'm gay. I know, about these things because I've been through them, I've lived them. But certainly all of our experiences are very different. And and for trans women, it was extremely, it was even harder than I had ever imagined. So I think that it just really put me in a path of saying, I am precisely in a position of doing something about this.
Wow.
And means bringing into this part of my personal experience, I will gladly do so. And I think it became that way, for the years that came. And I was able to just, again, be very, very lucky that I had, in this time, not only friends who were helping me, but that there were organizations that also brought their knowledge and their expertise and told us, this is the way that you can help us. Instead of you thinking, this is what you need, it was more than anything, just being able to listen to what they were telling.
Okay.
And again, every single time that we were thinking of something, how to message something, how to present even an idea, I had that in mind, because I think that before I was more of, we just need to do this because this is the right thing to do. But in also learning how you need to make allies with people that sometimes don't necessarily see this as a priority because they're not gay. And it doesn't mean that they are insensitive to it, but it's not something that they've encountered, in a way that I believe many of us have. And yes, absolutely, that has been one of the most fantastic experiences that I've had, and just really seeing how using the resources that you have is able to, to create something like I think we've been able to do with a lot of the projects that are out there right now.
Wow. And it is really a big topic, as you know, in terms of, obviously you've looked at, the research and the stats even here, and I'm assuming, in Mexico as well, globally speaking, right, that the impact at the level of the trans community, there is so much need. Need in terms of, trans Latinas, a lot of trans minority communities and organizations are really experiencing, so the levels that affect the overall LGBT community, they're sort of amplified, if you will, in terms of the levels of suicide, death rates, et cetera, because it's a very vulnerable, like you said, it's a very vulnerable group of individuals who, I think what I've learned too is, right, and you mentioned it sort of in the process in LA, is very it's creating more understanding, right? It's about understanding, like you said, what someone's needs are, but really listening and understanding, like not making assumptions about, I know what's best for you, making sure that everyone has a seat at the table, but is actually being heard. And I think a lot of times, you know, across the board, probably with for-profit, nonprofit organizations, you know, sometimes people aren't really being heard. You know, it's a group of people that think that they already have the right answer, but are not being as inclusive as they need to, or making sure that they're really understanding what those needs are. So, I mean, that's really powerful that, like you said, you had that experience in LA, and, you know, you were able to take that with you. I mean, DC, your role was very different, but obviously when you moved back now to Mexico, now being in Mexico City. And so, you know, what an amazing experience that you had. So one other question I have is, what advice would you give to any young LGBTQ Mexicano, like, who is very interested, in the foreign service, or, you know, and maybe even if they saw this video, it would pique their interest, you know, what advice would you give to them about joining the foreign service based on your experience?
I think that, you know, one of the things would be to maybe reach out to someone who's already in the foreign service and just, you know, talk to them about their experience. I think that sometimes we believe that, you know, foreign service, yes, it's about moving a lot. No, it's not about going to cocktails all the time. And it's also a very long process that you have to go through in your career. And that is something that I guess that, it would have been it would have been more helpful for me to have more understanding of that than what of the foreign service per se is in itself. You know, you are this professional career, you know, staff that represents Mexico. I mean, and that obviously sounds amazing, you know, and but that's also something that is extremely important. You are representing Mexico. This is not about necessarily you or what you feel that we need to do in certain, you know, in certain aspects or you know, just positions. We do follow instructions, and I think that the vocation to serve, the calling to serve, needs to be there, because otherwise you're really going to have a hard time, you know, in doing so many aspects, not only at work but in your personal life, in order to fulfill that. I think that I would, you know, reach out to someone and talk to them, and also not only talk to people who have reached all the way in our career, you know, like ambassadors, you know, reach to people who are in different, you know, points in our career, so that you can have a sense of it. Because I had the feeling that when we joined the foreign service, we were all so excited and we're like, oh my God, yes, I'm going to be an ambassador tomorrow, you know, and I'm going to be, again, you know, bringing world peace. And that doesn't necessarily happen that fast. But it's also okay. You know, you gain much experience and you participate so actively in so many things. But I think that you need to listen and understand that first, so that you're not discouraged when you go through the process. Because I think it's just as with any other professional careers, you know, in which you're trying obviously to be promoted. You know, in our case, promotions have a very distinct process, you know, and it involves a lot of factors that don't necessarily reflect on the type of person who you are and the type of work that you are contributing to with. And that's important also for you to hear, because otherwise I feel that it can be very, you can have little mini shocks throughout your career. You know, I took 2 promotions exams in which I was not promoted, and it really shook me, because you know, but I'm passionate about my work and I feel that I'm doing a great job, and people are telling me, you know, they're giving me good feedback, but I'm not seeing that. And and you take it very, very personally. And there has to be a moment in which you just kind of step back and you understand, this is the way my career works. You know, this is the way that it functions. And you need to really understand those little aspects in order for you to enjoy it better. And if it becomes to a point in which you are not necessarily then, your heart is not in it, well, obviously then, spread your wings and go somewhere else. In the good, positive sense. I'm not saying just kind of leave, but again, those are things that I think it's healthy for you to know when you're considering in going into a commitment like the one that I think many of us have done.
I love it. I think we've actually got some live viewers out there. So I was going to ask if anyone actually wants to ask a question, you can put it in the comments on Facebook. And so if you're out there, and we'll, depending on the question, we'll determine if we can answer it. But I guess one other thing I was thinking about is, what would you say has been like one of the biggest highlights in your career as a diplomat? Like what was just something that really was this powerful experience for you that has really stuck with you over, like you said, almost 20 years, you said?
I think that many of them, are just details that are very powerful, but just how it feels when you are able to help someone, when you are able to, I don't have to go out of my way to help someone. Like, this is literally my job. This is what I do. And the sensation that has is very powerful. And just how you are able then to connect precisely with someone who is, going through an extremely difficult situation, and you have, either information or resources or tools in order to help them. I think that those are the things that I have enjoyed the most in my career, and that I appreciate more. I mean, yes, it certainly has been other aspects have been very, very exciting. But I think those, have really changed me. I believe that they have changed me, and I wish that I could go back and thank those people, really telling them that it was them who helped me, be a better person. And
Wow.
and just how you are, by these interactions, how you're able to just appreciate a lot of things that you're able to do and have.
Amazing. So no one's actually, I think, posted any questions, but we do have, I thought you'd like to know that there is Ana Karina Pina, and she said that you were her mentor at ASF, and that she wants to thank you. I thought that was interesting. So
that is so awesome. That is. Muchas gracias.
Any parting words, like when you think any last words that you would like to share, or that is something that that you just want to get out there as well, in terms of the experience? Could be anything.
Well, I think that first of all, I would like to thank you and congratulating you for, the effort that you've done through the Proud Diplomat, and now through these, opportunities to connect, and for us to, have just conversations that are really important. I feel for people who can be, just going through situations in their life, personal or professional, and that they really are able to know that they are not alone. I think that that's one of the most important aspects, that again, going back to what many of us unfortunately had to go through when coming out, it was just that sensation that it was only you that are going through this, and knowing that there is people like you that have all of, that your heart is so invested in this, and that you have just, devoted, again, so many important things in order to create these spaces, is extremely important. And I feel that, my comment would be, well, now we need to, use them and take advantage of them and promote them. because once upon a time, we really didn't have those tools. And that is why, unfortunately, you know, many people went through so many difficult situations when they were growing up, or when we were growing up and coming out, because certainly, you know, that is still happening. But perhaps that is it. That is something that is, you know, the personal aspect of who you are isn't something that we should never be ashamed of.
Absolutely.
Never.
And
Absolutely.
I thank you for saying that, and just obviously, you know, for saying, you know, the work that obviously we're doing. I can tell you that there's so much power in just having conversations. I think sometimes it's easy to minimize conversations because, you know, we have them, we have certain types of conversations every day of our life. But when you can create a space like this where, you know, we're talking about things that affect us on not only our personal level, but also in a professional way, because really that's, the two are intertwined. It's, you know, we are who we are. But I can tell you that definitely is where my heart is that, you know, I remember being in that space in my early 20s, grappling with who I was. And I remember how challenging, like you said, how challenging, how much self-doubt, how much just, you know, kind of not mixed messages, but it's a whole time period where if you're doing it alone, like you said, and you don't think that there's support or someone else out there who you can relate to, it's so important to find that outlet, because you're not alone, and that's it. I mean, I know that's it. It's been used a lot that you're not alone, but people still go out, you know, go through any experience thinking I'm the only one really that's feeling this way or whatever, and you're not. And so, you know, here are two resources right in front of you right now on Zoom. If you're out there and you hear this on the replay, that if you know, are dealing with whatever, and you're curious about either the Foreign Service or really any topic, or you're curious about, you know, how do you start to maybe have more self-care and more self-compassion, you know, there are people that can help you get to that place, and do it actually quicker than perhaps you could do it on your own, because conversations that's the power of a conversation, is a power, you know, there's connection, there's identification, and then there's you know, through those conversations you can build that more awareness about it's okay who you are. It's okay to be exactly who you are and where you're at right now. And don't let anyone really try to tell you differently. So.
Yes, absolutely. You know, precisely what you said. I feel that it also takes a lot of courage to ask for help, and that's also something that I've learned and that I continue to learn. But I think it's, you know, when it comes to standing up for yourself, and then, you know, standing up for others and helping others, it's absolutely worth it. And as you said, you know, here are some fantastic resources that you can reach out to, and it doesn't need to get, you know, all complicated and everything. It's just about talking to someone that, you know, understands, and
Absolutely.
knowing that there is that is out there. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing, the overall conversation, and I can't wait to see what's next for you, because I know there's so much that's in front of you. So
thank you. I can't wait to see you again in person as well. So
well, you can always come to Miami. Wait, actually, you know what? Who knows? I probably will be in Mexico at some point, obviously with Jonathan, but at some point we'll be back in Mexico City. And so what is next for you? Do you think that you're ready? Are you ready for another assignment outside of to leave Mexico City and go to some global destination?
I think in terms of our timelines, you know, it depends a little right now on the, we're always kind of in function of the work that we're doing now. So I think that in the position that I have the opportunity to work and collaborate with, I think that I'll be here for a bit longer. You know, certainly for us, and this is also something that a colleague of ours taught me, The only thing that we have for sure at some point is that we are going to leave. So I'm just letting time, you know, determine itself. I'm very happy to be here and to, you know, connect and with a lot of friends in Mexico City. City has been amazing as well. I love that I'm able to connect with other friends, you know, this way. But yes, I think that we'll still be causing some good trouble down here.
Okay. Pues I can get back to at least have some like algunas conchas, like pan. I mean,
everyone is selling pan de muerto right now, and
pues sí.
And it's amazing, but it's also super dangerous. But
well, thank you again, Vanessa, and I wish you, of course, so much success and abundance.
Likewise.
All right. Bye.
Bye.